Hey guys, it's been some time. For those longtime viewers of this channel, you know that I used to upload lots of League of Legends content for that, but now I spend most of my energies playing Warhammer 40,000 outside of work. And today, I'm going to be sharing with you guys a little bit of a story and a little bit of an adventure that I went on recently in the previous weekend. For those of you who know me, I'm an ex-professional League of Legends coach. Ex being the key factor here. Like I mentioned, most of my energies these days are spent brewing, thinking, and strategizing in the tabletop game Warhammer 40k. I went with a bunch of five other friends to the largest Teams event in Asia, representing Singapore, and this is the story of how we did. The last time I covered a Singaporean team, it didn't end too well, and you can find the video on my channel where I got a Singaporean team relegated in the PCS. But today, this isn't a story of tragedy, it's a story of triumph. Well, triumph of sorts. We finished third at the end of the day, and it's an okay job. So an introduction for who's who. The six of us are friends. We hang out at a local gaming store called Gamosaurus Rex. As you can see by the cute little dinosaur holding the dice in the top right hand corner of the screen. We named ourselves South Johor as a little bit of a inside joke. And the team consists of two younger players, Jared and Wesley. They're up and coming talent who have been doing quite well in the local RTT scene. Wesley went to the World Championships of Warhammer with myself last year. We had two veteran players in the form of Victor and Gavin, who are one of the most successful singles players in Singapore throughout the history of the game. Now, I myself am currently the top ranked player in Southeast Asia. I play for a team in America once in a while when I get the chance to fly there, called the Midwest Monsters. And my regular duo and practice partner, Timothy, who we usually brew and exchange ideas with. We had very clearly a all-star roster of singles players, but the big question here was could we make it work in teams? For teams, scoring differential is a key element. As a result of that, it's not just about winning by 1 point, but being able to push a large margin to be able to decimate your opponents and bring back a large haul of points for your team. As a result of that, we want to build to present threats instead of building to find solutions, as people might do with toolbox armies in singles. I would always tell people the story of how when I went to America and I played this tactical brigade, very tactical orc army, and I had to stare down the horde of Tyranid monsters. I had to struggle, I had to play the full 3 hours for each round, and at the end of the day, everybody sat around my table and watched me punt in the crucial moments to fail to score my team the last 1 point or two. Technical armies like that usually don't score more than 12 or 13 differential points against competent opponents, but when you make mistakes or the opponents can coordinate a solid attack against you, they can end up coming back with 0 points altogether. So we adopted what we call a high level of intensity, and where we wanted to race to the beach. After all, the tournament was held in Phuket in Thailand, near a boat lagoon, and there were beautiful beaches all around us. The idea, finish your game as quickly as possible. That's when your opponents come back with a long haul of points and have time to go relax at the beach. You wanted to build to overwhelm your opponents, and if there were bad matchups, you would mitigate that with pairings or with player execution. In the matchup of the horde of orc boys running around trying to move block the opponents against the Tyranid monsters, you want to be the Tyranid monsters. So our team composition going into this was myself being on Death Guard, Jared being on AdMac, and Gavin being on Necrons. The big thing here was can we pose the right questions to the meta? Now, these three armies usually tend to do pretty decently in teams, as Death Guard's pretty resilient, and it's tough for the opponents to get big scores against Death Guard, and it's the same for Necrons. AdMac does not have the same level of resiliency, but because of how cheap their units is, they can achieve the same level of baseline scoring. This formed the basic shield of our composition. Now we needed to find the swords. Our other three players were very competent singles players. However, their high movement technical based armies were not necessarily the most suited for teams. Therefore, they needed to make a change. They needed to move away from single style armies to things that could directly pose threats and quickly run people over in a matter of 2 or 3 turns. We shifted Timothy over to playing the Astra Militarum, bringing a whole bunch of tanks, Victor to playing the Ultramarines, and Wesley over to playing Custodes. Now, for the full breakdown of the army, to understand what these things actually do. For the Ultramarines, playing a gun line has been a very strong archetype since 2025. However, this was not the best for teams as it was not good at pushing differential. As of December in 2025, the Victrix on the Guard that were released enables this archetype to push a differential with some extremely strong infantry that can threaten to run people over from the get-go from turn 1. Now this creates a play pattern where if they are able to set up a scout into pinning down the opponent with this character called Captain Sicarius, enable Devastator Doctrine to then enable shooting pieces to drive into position and take out key opponent pieces, while in combination with the pin to limit the amount of return fire the opponents can do. It eventually sets up where Marnus Kalgar, the chapter master of the Ultramarines, can eventually push for their home and get a big 16 plus score for the team. Astra Militarum that we swapped Timothy onto is another example of a combined arms army, combining the likes of tanks and infantry, with the tanks to control the lanes and the firing lanes, and then the infantry to then be able to use the rapid ingress stratagem to come in, push the leads, and secure the scoring for the Astra Militarum. And Astra Militarum is a very versatile army because even when they're up against a tougher matchup, they can flip the dynamic around and use the infantry to screen and flip the opponent's objectives to deny their scoring, while the tanks secure their own scoring for themselves. So we have a very strong ball control army with a very high level of flexibility here in the Astra Militarum. Necrons was the third army that we brought to the event. Now, there are quite a lot of builds for Necrons that we saw during the event itself. And the way I like to think about it is that Necrons function on the sliding scale of scoring to solutions-based Necrons. For scoring-based archetypes, you have the likes of warriors and the wraiths. In the middle, you have the utility pieces like the Silent King, which is the centerpiece model for the Necron army. And on the solution side of things, some people like to bring the likes of a Tesseract Vault, the, the Doom Size, and the newly released Satan. We decided to go with a proven archetype of 12 Wraiths and Starshatter Arsenal, where the Wraiths are aiming to score. They bring the DDA as a solution piece, and the Silent King is your push piece with -1 damage available to it. This got a big upgrade recently, as we no longer needed the DDAs, which we all considered a little bit inconsistent, and we upgraded those into the newly buffed and improved Satan. Wesley on Custodes was something that we saw popping up in the meta all around in overseas play. The entire idea was that with the patch and balance cycle of the game, sometimes some armies they just became a little bit too cheap. Custodes was one of these armies. With the constant point drops to the likes of Land Raiders and Custodes Guardians, you were able to just put too much on the table for people to deal with. The original premise of this archetype was to present a possible 3 Land Raider stat check to the opponent, in combination with the reactive move and the fact that you had just too much material on the board for the opponents to deal with. However, we found that with the Satan being released into the meta, this became a little bit of a problem for our team composition overall, as we do not have enough solutions to toughness 12 targets. And due to the limited mobility of this army, we had a little bit of a reach problem, as the opponents could pre-measure their movement and play the kite around what the threat range of this army is. We innovated a little and swapped out some of those Land Raiders for the Kalidas Graph tanks to then adopt a similar structure to what we have with Astra Militarum, where once again the tanks will control the lanes and the infantry will push the leads. Our AdMech list was consisting of the same solid scoring structure, which would involve infiltrators standing in front of rangers. We included the Sidonian Skatros for the open layouts that you would see very often at this event. And we included the anti-meta solution package of, once again, more anti-vehicle, things that could kill toughness 12 things, as well as the Cataphront Destroyers to kill elite infantry, which was quite prevalent in the meta as well. For myself, I was playing my favorite army, the Death Guard. with Rick and Morty. Now, Mortarion is the Primarch of the Death Guard. Most of the time, people just refer to him as Morty, which makes the Demon Prince that plays alongside him Rick in reference to the hit TV show. Step one of executing the strategy actually follows that story structure of the show quite well. You go on an adventure and you push them into the center of the board. And then the plot takes them to the opposing homeworld, where you then put the opponents into the contagion range of the Death Guard, and then you drop the Dash Terminators to bring Calamity onto the homeworld. Now, this is a very simple strategy that allowed me to focus on pairings and captaining duties, and is able to bully armies that struggle with dealing with toughness 12 threats. So that's our team composition that we brought to this event. In the first round, we played against Team Shah Ali from Malaysia. Now, this used to be a very storied rivalry in previous editions, where the big Malaysian GTs would have the top Malaysian players going up against the top Singaporean players. However, in 10th edition, the last 3 years, it has been a little bit of a one-sided rivalry, with the latest outing in the teams event that we played against them in Malaysia being a 90 to 10 in our favor. As the pairings were done, we ended up with our Ultramarines, Victor playing against the Necrons. I was up against the Chaos Knights, Necrons against Astra Militarum, Jared on AdMech against the Emperor's Children, Westian Custodes against their Marines, something that we would always be aiming to do, and Timothy on Astra Militarum up against the Drukhari player. My game started with me once again trying to execute the classic Rick and Morty going on an adventure strategy. They started out with me going second, the opponent got the staging in, and they came out to go on an adventure, staring down the MacGuffin of the week, being the triple Knight Despoilers with Gatling cannons. However, the dice were not in my favor with the nature of this game, and with the damage they were doing to Morty, the Water Carnivore was able to sneak his way in and make a charge. He rolled high, I didn't roll the saves, and he killed Mortari. Against any other matchup, this would have been a big problem for me, but this was a matchup that was overwhelmingly in my favor. My opponent now goes around and exclaims to the rest of his team. With the dynamics of teams events, you're allowed to communicate with your teammates what has happened on your table and whether they can push or not to slow down. So my opponent goes around and yells to his teammates, "Guys, I killed Mortarion." Well, I'm not sure what they were expecting as a result of that. It definitely did slow down my push. As a result of them taking out my key centerpiece, I was no longer able to push for a big win, and I was only able to secure a 12-8 for my team. However, what really happened was that when he proclaimed that he took out Mortari, it was actually a little bit of a buff, not so much to his teammates, but to mine instead, as it made them a little bit more motivated, as we had a little bit of a side bet going on, where whoever would score the lowest at the end of the event would be thrown into the pool at the hotel. They saw this as an opportunity to put me at the bottom of the rankings, and those who could pushed for the big wins accordingly, and we then won the round 89 to 31. Round 2, we went up against Team HQ from Hong Kong. They were quite happy to be able to play in Cantonese against Victor and Gavin, who was able to communicate with them in their native language, and they actually invited us to another team's event in Shenzhen. The vibes when playing against this team were great. They were probably my favorite matchup of the entire event. The pairings were as follows, and things were not going off to a good start, as Victor, with a little bit of a panic tone, came up to me and said, "Hey, I don't think it's looking good. Guys, I'm in trouble." As he knew he was about to get O20 against Parson Young, who was the best Thousand Suns player in arguably all of Asia. However, we were able to stabilize the ship, and I knew that I had my matchup in the bag. It wasn't quite the 20-0 in the other direction, but I was able to stabilize things by projecting a big win against the Tyranids, eventually scoring a 17-3. Now, once again, this is where the push control comes in for the team's event, and we were then able to let our other players find the opportunistic chances didn't get big wins on their side. They knew that Victor was in trouble and they had to bail him out. And thus, they pushed for the big wins and we were able to take the round 77-43. One of the things that I carried over from my time doing esports is we have this fuel plan. At this point of time, we were 6 hours into the event and 8 hours since we woke up in the morning that day. Each round is about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, including pairings and all, and it can be quite a drain on the body and on the mind. So before that, on the day prior, we went and bought a bunch of snacks. We got assorted dates. I'm personally not the biggest fan of 99% cocoa chocolate, but some of the guys like it, and we got a bunch of jerky as well. If we were to go the full miles, we would have gotten like sliced celery sticks and carrot sticks and assorted nuts as well, but we didn't have the time to prepare all of that. Food was prepared for us at this event, but the instructions for my guys was to fast until after the second round. Well, most of the time, I would actually choose to fast throughout the entire event and just eat dinner only at the end. But given that the last time I came to Phuket to play a event, I missed out on all the tasty food that they had ordered in for us instead. So I said, you know what? Let's just get an order in the food, but we are going to shift the meal time to after round two. And for caffeine intake, we made it very clear and we all agreed to limit caffeine until after round one only to mitigate for the carb crash accordingly. And failing all of that, we had Monster energy drinks on standby if we needed a little bit of pick me up. If only I'd followed this a little bit stricter and spent a little bit more effort onto myself. I was used to playing singles events and I wasn't exposed to how tiring doing all the captaining and pairings work on top of playing games would be as we went into round three. Cue the boss music because we were up against the eventual winners of the event, StatChank, who had their own podcast and were lined with a star-studded array of players, including multiple WTC podium finishers and top ITC ranked players. The plan here was to pinch their opposing Tyranid and Ultramarines with our own Ultramarines and Custodes. This was a matchup that we practiced quite a fair bit, and we were looking to find big wins in these matchups. With how the pairings went, we found it. With our Ultramarines, one of our big push players playing into the Tyranids, and Westian Custodes being able to play into their Ultramarines. The job for the rest of us was to hold the fort fast. The plan, so far, was looking good. I went into my game against the Necrons. He got the first drop and aggressively infiltrated Wraiths on the top side of the map against me. The mission was push the foe, and with him taking the first turn, he turned on the pressure against me straight away, pushing all the Satan onto the points and aggressively attacking me on the top side flank. With how strong the Satan were in this current batch, there was little I could do to deal with the central push coming through from him. And while I was eventually able to push back on the top side of the map, the little mistakes that I had been making throughout the game so far resulted in him getting the push and breakthrough on the bottom side of the map as well. As a result of that, there are three big mistakes that had me not performing the best in this game. The first, I took the wrong contagion. This is a little bit of a rookie mistake, and looking back at this, I'm a little bit disappointed. The second was the wrong sequencing of the trading piece exposure that resulted in me losing on the bottom flank. And the third, and probably the most silly when I look back at it, is just simply forgetting to input my scores. The way that the mission worked, you scored when you could kill one or kill more of the opponent's pieces. I completely forgot to input this portion of my scoring, and as a result, I lost out on 16 primary worth of scoring in this game. As a result of that, I returned to my team with a 119. My job was to hold the fort. I did not do my job. As the rest of the scores came in, it might be possible. It looked like it still might be possible for my teammates to bail me out of the huge mistakes that I had made. 13-7 with Necrons against Sisters. 13-7 with Astra Militarum beating up the Tau Empire. And Jared on AdMac holding the fort against the opponent's Scintillating Legion. However, our two players that was supposed to get the big wins for us were not able to convert accordingly. And as a result, we lost around 48 to 72. With that, our ability to compete for the top spot was out of the picture, but we were still playing for the podium. When we went into this event, we said that we were going to play and aim to finish on the podium. So when we went into day two, round four was against Clown Den, which was a Vietnamese club and great friends of ours. We often go over there to play in their singles events. This is probably the second best team in Southeast Asia, and they drew in the first round against the main Singapore team. Well, I don't have too much notes on my game, but some of the quote-unquote quotes as this game proceeded was when Wesley took the mirror and the Custodes mirror, he opted for Talents of the Emperor, which enabled him a lot more technical tricks, while his opponent opted for raw damage. He put on a master class and showed his opponent why the technical utility of the Talents of the Emperor detachment was superior and got a 14-6 victory. And most hilariously of all, Gavin, from his win in the exact same matchup against StatCheck previously, he came to us initially with this being projected as quite a bad matchup. But after having played against the European All-Stars, he gained the confidence to then play it and convert it into a 73 victory for himself. There's nothing too much to note from the rest of the scores, and we won this round 82 to 38. Round 5 had us playing for third place. We were up against the Surrey Primax complete team that flew in all the way from the UK, huge shout out to them, to Thailand to play this event. When we looked at their lists and their team composition, it was quite clear that they were not prepared to play on Games Workshop terrain. The tipping point layout exacerbated those deficiencies in their team composition most clearly. We ended up with the following set of pairings, and the most interesting game from this would probably be Ultramarines against the Chaos Demons, where within the hour itself, the Chaos Demons presents a problem to the opponents, where the large centerpiece model Bellicor forces the opponents to get within 18 inches of the big demons to interact with them. For the Ultramarines, they just didn't care. He called the Assault Doctrine and simply proceeded to run him over. And within the first hour of gameplay, his opponent was running around to his teammates going, "Oh no, my opponent is in my base on turn 1. Bellicor died in the first battle round, and it was a 20-0 for the Ultramarines player. Big scores were converted due to their lack of preparation for the Games Workshop terrain layout formats. And as the rest of the scores came in, it was clear that our victory was secured as we won the round 84 to 36. With that, the final standings had us finish in third place, losing on tiebreakers to the Surrey Primax, who finished in second, featuring the out of 4 members joining them there, and we finished third with an okay job. Special thanks to Geoff and Stephen for hosting this event, and additional thanks to Niels for being the head judge. Well, I'm not too sure where the exact direction I'm going to be taking with this channel, and maybe I'll keep doing this little recaps for Warhammer as I continue to take adventures in the Grimdark space. With that, this is Jensen. I hope you enjoyed my recap of our team's event in Asia, and I hope you have a nice day.